Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar on JSTOR, which is one of the databases that state employees have access to through the Kentucky Department for Libraries and Archives. It is quite the wealth of information on JSTOR. I haven't used it much since I was in graduate school, so one of the questions that I have to get started in a moment, I will get there. But before we get to getting into JSTOR, a little bit of housekeeping at the beginning here. If you can't hear me or are having issues with your sound, you can click the purple tab in the bottom right corner of the screen here and click on the settings gear to adjust the volume. You are also welcome to call in using a phone for audio. And to access the chat box, you also need to click that same purple tab in the bottom right and then click on the chat bubble to see what's going on in the chat box. If you have any technical issues or questions as we go, the chat box is where those questions need to go. So Alicia, who is my colleague helping me out today, can answer them as we go. Other things. So after the webinar concludes, a PDF of the slides will be sent out, as well as a certificate of attendance. And as you know, the webinar is being recorded and it will eventually be available through the KDLA website and YouTube channel. So we will go ahead and get started here. So I am just curious if anyone does use JSTOR or has used it in the past. I would love to know more about how you use JSTOR. And if you want to think about that and pop it in the chat as we go, I'm going to kind of cover a few different uses. But it's helpful to know just kind of how state employees might use this database. So we can kind of tailor that advice for how to use it as we go. Yeah, Stephen, I also used it a lot in graduate school. Not as much now, although I do use it sometimes in my day-to-day. Speaking of, I am Melissa Colston and I'm a librarian, a reference librarian here at KDLA. I work in the Archives Research Room, which is our public-facing area where we serve the public to access the records that we have here in the archives. And I also am here to help state employees access our databases. Alicia McGrath is here helping me out, and she is one of our team members for all things continuing ed. So if you ever have any questions about that, she is your person to go to for sure. All right. Years ago during school, but not really for my current position. Well, you might find after this presentation, you might find that you need to get on JSTOR and just do some poking around. Because like I said, there's a lot that's available on JSTOR. So let's jump in. So to get started with databases from KDLA, if you go to our website, which is kdla.ky.gov, it's down there in red at the bottom of the slide. There's a tab up at the top of every page. It says state employees. It's just for you all. And there's a whole bunch of different things under that tab. One of them is research databases. And if you don't know anything about all the different offerings that we have for state employees, I highly recommend exploring there because there's a lot that we offer for state employees, including research databases. And if you don't have a library account yet, but would like to get one, I've circled the link to the library account application there. And that's a pretty straightforward process. You just give your employee information, we get set up with a library card, and then you can access all of the things that we offer, including databases and audiobooks and ebooks and things like that. But once you have your library account and you click on research databases under that state employees tab, it takes you to this page, which has a list of all of the different databases that we subscribe to. And JSTOR is just the second one on the list there. There's some really good databases, so if you haven't looked through them, you've got a lot of information that you have access to just by being a state employee. But we're talking about JSTOR today. So when you click on JSTOR, you're going to encounter a page like this, and you'll have to enter in your library card number, your barcode, and whatever password you set up. If you need to reset your password or having issues, you can click that set reset password. You're always welcome to contact us here at KDLA if you're having trouble accessing your account. Occasionally your account might expire. We just need to update your contact information and make sure you're still an employee, that kind of thing. But it's a pretty straightforward process, so don't worry. But once you get logged in on our end, you will open up the JSTOR page. And so JSTOR is a massive collection of different essentially what it started out as in the 90s was it was a pilot project at the University of Michigan. And it was seen originally as a way to ease storage issues at universities before much digitizing had been done. And in 2009, so they did that for a long time, and that's how most of us have used it. It's either digitized journals or journals that are now being published digitally. They merged with another company called Ithaca in 2009, which is a not-for-profit company that uses digital technology to preserve knowledge. So it was all about just kind of collecting as much as they could and building this very robust database of scholarly knowledge. And now they've got journals, book chapters, this huge collection of art, all kinds of different things are available on JSTOR, which is why it is really valuable that we have access to it. So I already walked you through how to log on through KDLA. And now before we get sort of into how searching and browsing and all the different other things that they've got, how all of that works, I'm going to show you sort of the extra special side of JSTOR, if you will. One of the things that you can do, and you don't have to do this to use it, but one of the things that you can do is you can create your own account on JSTOR. So we've got a little red circle up there at the top right corner of the page that says login or register. And there are a few things that you can do with a personal account. Essentially, it's pretty straightforward. You should have, you put in your email address. It doesn't have to be your state email address. This personal account that's on JSTOR will actually follow you, even if you're not a state employee. Like, you could set it up with your personal email. And then if you move on to another position outside of government, you can still access the information that you save in your personal JSTOR account at a later date. And you don't have to have access to your state email to do that. So that can be pretty helpful if that's something that's helpful for you. But regardless, you see here your institution or university should be filled in at the bottom there where it says Kentucky Department for Libraries and Archives. But you just set up an account like normal. Another password to remember. And once you have your profile set up, there are a few different features that I wanted to point out just because they can be really helpful if you are using JSTOR on a regular basis. So you've got a profile where you can fuss with your password, do whatever you need to do. And then they've got a couple of things here. One of them is Workspace, what they call Workspace. And it's basically just like your own personal filing cabinet to use while you're working on JSTOR. And so the way this works is when you do a search, you get some results, you find an article that you're interested in or a book chapter or something like that. When you are logged into JSTOR, then you can save that article or artwork or whatever you can save it to your workspace, and you can create different folders. You can see here you've got an option to download the PDF. So this is apparently a journal that we subscribe to. You can download the PDF or you can save it. And if you click save, once you go back to your workspace page, you've got options to move it around. If you've got different folders set up, you're doing research on a few different topics. You can add notes about the article, which I know would have really helped me when I was in graduate school and reading hundreds of articles, or what felt like hundreds of articles. You can also generate citations in, I believe, 3 different formats. I think it's APA, MLA, and Chicago. So that can just be like a little handy thing if you need it. And then you can also, up here at the top right, you can export your list. So if you're building like a bibliography or something, you could easily export your list from your JSTOR workspace if that's something you need. Okay, so the other thing that's really important, especially right now, and we'll see how this works in a minute, is all the time JSTOR offers free article views to a certain degree. Right now, as it says on the slide, they are offering expanded access to these free article views up to 100 articles a month. And it tells you on this page, which is on your personal profile page, free article views, it tells you how many you have remaining and when that number will reset. So I've only read 1 article that is outside. Basically, let me back up. So free article views, these are for articles that our institution does not necessarily have a subscription to. So any journal that we have a subscription to, you download your PDF and save it to your computer and things like that. If we do not subscribe to it, JSTOR offers this free access. And during COVID, it's up to 100 articles per month. You cannot download the article, but you can read it and you can save it. And you can go back, it keeps track of which ones you read, so you can go back to them if you need to. So that's really helpful. I think normally, I think you can get a permalink. I've never actually tried that, but I don't see why not. Yeah, Amy, that's a good question. If you can get a permalink to the article itself, I think you can, but they only show you 1 page at a time. So it would just take you to the whichever page, I guess the first page maybe. I'm not sure. That's a good question. Worth doing some experimentation on. So normally outside of COVID times, you can read up to 6 free articles a month, which is much lower. It used to be, I think, 3, and then they increased it to 6. So 100 articles a month is really quite expansive, and that's a lot of articles every month. So there you go. Good to know. And like I said, this free reviews page gives you information about, how many you've read, which ones they are. If you want to save them to your workspace, you can do that. And same with exporting a citation and things like that. Where it says looking for more access, JPass is one of their options where you personally could buy a pass to JSTOR. And I'm not sure what the price is or anything like that, but if you find that you're needing way more access to things and you want to pay for it on your own, that is an option for you. I think they came out with that a few years ago, especially to allow folks without institutional access to get access to JSTOR, which is nice. Okay. One thing that I will note while we're here before I move on, and we can mention this again later, is if you are finding things on JSTOR that we don't have subscriptions for, don't have access to, and you really need the full article, you need the PDF, you are always welcome to submit an interlibrary loan request on the KDLA website, which, let me see, we'll go back so I can show you under the KDLA State Employees tab. Ask a Librarian is one of the options, and that is the form where you can go and submit any sort of request that you have, either for a book or an article or something like that. It does have to relate to your position in some way. It can't just be for funsies, but we are very able to put in requests for things that we don't have subscriptions to or have in our collection, and we can get them from other libraries. And if it's a physical book, we can send it to you. If you're working from home, send it to your home, send it to your office. It's really, really convenient. So just a quick plug for interlibrary loan if you hadn't thought of that, because that is an option for all state employees. Okay, back to the story. Okay, so that is setting up your personal account. Like I said, it's not required to use JSTOR, but it can be helpful if you want to kind of keep track of what you've looked at or want to organize things as you go. Now, to access the different collections on JSTOR, there's a couple of different ways that you can get to do things. Browsing is where we're going to start today, just to give you an overview of the different ways that you can kind of explore what's on JSTOR before diving into specific searches. And there are some limitations, pros and cons on either side, I guess. Let's see here. So for browsing, the main limitation with browsing anything is on JSTOR, they don't tell you up front if your institution has a subscription to whatever you're looking at. So it takes a few steps to figure that out. And that's kind of the main thing that isn't super convenient about searching JSTOR. But if you only want to see things that we have access to and subscriptions to, I'll show you how to do that later. So for browsing, there are 4 different options that they give you for browsing: subject, title, collections, and publisher. And subject is basically what it sounds like. They have a list, big long list of the different subject areas that they have different journals and book chapters and things that relate to those subjects that they've categorized them as. I think most folks, including me, figured that JSTOR is mainly about humanities and like those kind of areas. However, they do have quite a range of topics that their journals cover, including business, medicine, science topics, among others. And they are, you know, historical, current. It's a really wide gamut. So I encourage you, if you're interested in learning more about what they've got, take a browse through their subjects, just to kind of get an idea of the different things that they have available. If you click on one of these particular subjects, it will take you just to a list of the journals or books that they have categorized under that framework. So I took a look at labor and employment relations as a subject, and there's apparently 26 journals in JSTOR that relate to labor and employment relations. And the date range that it's showing you is what is available in JSTOR. It's not necessarily what's available for that journal period. So the ABA Journal of Labor and Employment Law is available on JSTOR through 2017, but it may still be a current journal, just embargoed, you know, not yet available on JSTOR. So for very current things, you may or may not have access to it through this particular database. But we may have other ways to access it, or, you know, if you know you need something from a particular journal for a particular time that isn't available on JSTOR, ILL is always an option as well. Okay, so you can also browse by title. That is another option. And again, it's pretty straightforward. You've got an option to look at journals, books, or research reports by title, and it's alphabetical. Again, gives you the published date that's available through JSTOR. And once you click on one of those titles, say we wanted to look at ecological restoration, it gives you more information about the journal itself, who it's published by, what the title history is, which if you've ever dealt with journals in any way, maybe not any way, but as much as I have, many journals over their lifespan will change their name and evolve into something else, but they're still considered to be in the same family. So it looks like this one went through a couple of title changes from restoration and management notes in the 80s and 90s to ecological restoration in North America. And now it's just ecological restoration. So if you are interested in that, that information is there for you. It also gives you information about the publisher, and you can look at the different issues that are available through JSTOR. So if we click on one of those issues that's under the 2010s there, it's going to bring you into a table of contents kind of thing, where you can see page numbers, author, permalink. You've got options to save and cite things. You can also use those checkboxes to do different things. But when you go to click on one of those articles and actually read it, I'll show you what it looks like. So you see the first page of the article, and over on the right-hand side of the screen, you've got the rundown of the same information that was in the table of contents. But it also shows you that KDLA does not have access to this particular article on JSTOR. So this is kind of the downside of browsing, is you go, oh, this looks really interesting. And then you get into the article and you can't download it. It does give you the option to read for free online, which, like I said, right now is great. You can screenshot it. Physically you can screenshot it. That's what I did to get this image here. They don't prevent that, but it is, they don't make it easy for you, I guess is the point there. You can't download it all as one file. And like I said, if you need access to a particular article and you need to get it downloaded, we may have access to it through a different database. So you're always welcome to put in that request through the Ask a Librarian service, and we can see if we can find it for you another way. In a way that is slightly more in line with copyright law, is what I will say. So if you want to do the free read online option, you click that button, and that will take one of your tally marks off your count for the month, and it will allow you to page through the article and read it. And then it does give you some alternate access options. So if you happen to be a student somewhere else, you can log in with different credentials or purchase or subscribe or something like that. You got options, I guess is the point here. But yes, so this is the downside of browsing and finding things that look really interesting without actually knowing if we can access. So moving on. One of the other options that they give you for browsing is to browse by collection. And these are different collections that they've put together. I believe they are all collections for specific institutions or things like JSTOR Primary Sources or ArtStore, which is another whole collection that JSTOR has, part of the database that we will talk about in a few minutes. And there are some really interesting collections in here. Some of them are open access, so you can access them with or without any sort of credentials. Some of them are restricted in different ways, but you know, it can be just interesting to look through the different collections from different institutions. Like on the screenshot, we've got the 1970 Edinburgh Commonwealth Games from the University of Stirling. I don't know what's in there, but it might be interesting to look at. 23 items, but there's just a really wide range. And one of the collections that I found that I thought was really cool is this collection from Reveal Digital, which I think is like a media company. I'm not sure about who Reveal Digital is, but I think they make podcasts. I could be wrong about that. Anyway, the collection is of American prison newspapers from 1800 to 2020. Voices, it's subtitled Voices from the Inside. And you can search within the collection. I don't think I actually searched through it. It gives you some information about the collection itself, and then the different objects that are available, the different articles or images or whatever it is that the collection is made up of. You can kind of scroll through and see what it is. And one of the things that they have in there is called Castle on Cumberland, which is actually was uploaded from the University of Kentucky's collection, which was I believe it's still, might not be. I'm not sure about if it is still published, but it was a prison newspaper from the Kentucky State Penitentiary in Eddyville. And they've got several issues, and you can kind of look through them. It's kind of interesting to see, you know, we have some of these actually in KDLA's collection as well. This one just happens to be from UK, but they've got, you know, these prison newspapers were published in the prisons by the inmates, and they've got different things in them, from information about, you know, the administration and things to note about the future calendar. Trying to see what else is on. It's pretty small. Parole information, how many people were paroled or deferred. It's a really interesting collection, and I believe that whole collection is open access. So yeah, so there's some really interesting things that you can find in the collection. You can also view in the collection by contributor. So if you wanted to look at anything that UK uploaded, you know, you could come back into the collection list, and I believe it's actually, I don't have an image of the collections list, but it's very similar to this one, where this is the collections as a whole. But once you get into a particular collection, you know, you may be able to click on the actual contributor and see what other collections they might have available on JSTOR. So, one little fun fact about that. The last option for browsing is to browse by publisher. Kind of like if you wanted to look by collection contributor. It's pretty straightforward, same idea as browsing by title. It's just an alphabetical list, and it will show you, you know, all of the journals and books, things like that, that are available from a particular publisher on JSTOR. Okay, so before I jump into searching, if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. Take a moment here. I'm just buzzing through, so we might finish up a little bit early. Okay, So I'm not seeing any questions, but feel free to pop them in the chat at any point while I'm presenting. And I'll either answer them or Alicia might get to them before I do. So the other main way to access JSTOR's collection is through searching. And when you first pull up that main JSTOR screen, it's just got a nice big search bar right up front. And when you type in whatever your keywords are, it's going to give you some options that drop down below the search bar. So here I've typed in Civil War and it gives me just search for Civil War, or search by author, search by title, search for images. You've got different sort of general options that it gives to you. This is kind of like your very broad, like this is a very broad way to do your search at the beginning. Kind of like just going to Google and putting in Civil War. You never know what's going to come up, and it's going to be basically unfiltered because you're not giving JSTOR any other parameters to search by. The perhaps more targeted way to go about searching is to use the advanced search option from the beginning. So you can get to that a couple of different ways, either under the search tab at the top. If you click on that, it gives you advanced search or image search as options, or it gives you a link right under that general search bar as well. If you decide to go the advanced search route, you've got a lot more things, a lot more options available to you to focus that search from the beginning. And either way is fine. It's just kind of about however you want to go about it. I kind of prefer, since I generally have somewhat of an idea of what I'm looking for, like I know I might not want something, or that I might want something specific. You're going to be still using your keywords, but you can then narrow it down by publication type or time frame or specific types of journals. So this is kind of an awkward set of screenshots, but this is all on one page. So you can type in your keywords and then you can pick, I only want books from 1900 to 1950, or you can specify the journal title, or you can specify the subject area of the journals. You can also, I think if you can see my pointer here, I don't know if you can, down here, access type. I'll show you more about that in a moment, but that is important if you want to restrict the results of your search to only content that you can access. So you don't have to do that. You can change it to all content, and you can see everything that's on JSTOR that is available under your search, or you can restrict it just to things that you can access. So this is kind of the difference between browsing, which takes the long way to find out if we have access to it, versus searching only content that we can access. Okay, so I'll kind of show you how that works in a moment. There also, with your keyword search, there are different things that you can do. So you can do a field search if you are interested in a particular author, or if you only want to search the abstract or like the caption of an image. You can restrict the fields after in that drop-down box after the keyword box. You can also use multiple keywords, and you can do this kind of fun, not fun might be a stretch, this handy little way to do what's called a proximity search. So if you know they don't necessarily, it's not necessarily all one phrase, like Civil War or Battle of the Bulge or something like that, like a specific phrase that you're looking for, you want to use a keyword that also relates but may not be in a full phrase, you can search two keywords that are near each other. Or you can search by your Boolean operators, which are and, or, and not. So civil and war, civil or war, civil not war. If you are tired of looking at things about civil war, you just want civil things and not war things, whatever you need to do to kind of make your search what you need it to be. But then you can do this proximity search where the keywords need to be within 5, 10, or 15, 25 words. So that's just a little thing that you can play with. And then you can also add a search box if you need to add more keywords. There's a lot you can do. And eventually you're going to get to the point where JSTOR is like, there are no results for you. You are too specific. But, you know, you can kind of find a happy medium there. So I did just a basic search for Civil War. I believe I put it in quotation marks, and if you don't know, quotation marks around your keywords means that it will search that specific word order and that specific phrasing. So it will only find things that have Civil War as a term in, you know, in the article or the abstract or whatever. Once you do your search, there are different ways that you can refine the results of your search on that results page. And the refinement options are over on the left. So I decided that I wanted only things from 2010 forward. I wanted only pretty recent stuff because JSTOR has this huge range of information and knowledge. So you're going to get a huge range of dates depending on what you need. You may be looking at a specific time period. You may need something more recent. So if you only put in, you know, a from year and leave out the to year, it will bring you results from 2010 forward in this example. Or you can limit it to a specific set of years. You can also limit it by content, journals, or book chapters. And then I also wanted to limit my results by like a content access down in the bottom right corner here. Access type, all content, or content that I can access. Those are two options. But then you can also limit by subject area. So I can't remember how I did this one. I might have already had this one selected, but I'm getting a little lost in what I did here, but that's okay. So I believe when I did this search specifically, I searched for Civil War, but I limited it to subject area of African American Studies and American Indian Studies, because that is a whole nother subset of information about the Civil War from a completely different perspective than many things that are published about the Civil War. So that's why we've got these results that are specific to the Journal of Black Studies and things like that. Within those search results, you can do another keyword search as well. So then when I put in the word Kentucky, it's further refining your search from the original set of keywords and limitations, and it brings up these articles about Civil War, information about Kentucky, things like that. You can also do, like we noted before, you can save, you can cite things, you can download PDFs. These are all articles that we have access to through KDLA, so you can download them without opening the article itself. You can change the way that it's sorted by relevance or by recency or other options. You can use these checkboxes to select multiple articles and then export the citations. Many different tools are available to you in these search results. I guess that's the main point. So One other main way to access collections that they've got on JSTOR is to do an image search. Sometimes you can do a search for images with keywords. You can do it with the advanced search. But it's easier to just go straight to the images if that's what you're interested in. Now, the images that are available on JSTOR, there's a ton. We don't have access to all of them. And in fact, there's a big chunk of them that we don't have access to, which is okay, but it might kind of throw you off when you're looking through them. Now, uses for these images, these are cleared copyright use for non-commercial, educational, research purposes, educational or research purposes. These cannot be used for promotional purposes. So like if you wanted to put them in a brochure or something like that, that wouldn't be okay. But if you need a fancy image for a presentation that you're giving to your department or something like that, that would be fine. That's a good question, Nathan. I'm not sure if you can do interlibrary loan for images the way that you can for articles, but it would be worth asking our interlibrary loan specialists here at UK or here at KDLA if you find something that you need for your job. That's the limitation on ILL, is it's got to be for your job. Something relevant for your job. But yeah, that's a good question. It may be that, we might need to get copyright clearance or something like that versus interlibrary loan, which is a different thing altogether. That's a whole other ball of wax, basket of worms, anything like that. So just briefly, searching for images is, you can use those images for educational documents that we develop and share with the public. You can use them as long as they're educational. Like again, there's a lot of fuzzy things around copyright with images because it's a lot easier to violate copyright with images. So it's just something that you need to be aware of. You can't be using them for these like obvious promotional or commercial uses. But if it's just educational documents that aren't necessarily promoting, like I said, it's fuzzy. If you have questions about a specific use of an image or anything else, we're always happy to help you sort of figure out if it's allowable based on our licensing. So it's hard to say without having specifics, I guess, is the point. And I hope that I've worked enough with copyright that it is pretty much no matter what, it's always going to be fuzzy. And you kind of just have to see in a specific instance if you think that it works, if your use of it is allowed. Amy has a question about JSTOR audio archives, and I don't actually know anything about the audio archives. So I will have to look into that and get back to you. I haven't seen that as an option in any of the aspects that I've seen, just in working through all the different things to get ready for this presentation, but I can look into that and get back to you. Yeah, that sounds like it does kind of sound like it might have been a trial thing, like an experiment that JSTOR did for a while. I honestly don't know anything about it, but we can look into it and get back to you. Okay, so back to images. The way to search images is basically, it's similar to searching for text and articles and things like that, but you're mainly relying on a very limited amount of information that might be in a caption. So you're going to get fewer results than the tens of thousands of articles that you might get about the Civil War. But you can do some refinement based on time frame, subject area, classification, that kind of thing. But you know, you can kind of play around and see if you're not finding what you need. You may need to just play around with your keywords. But there are different options that pop down when you put in a keyword and to do your image search, where, you know, the first option says just search for frogs. I decided I wanted to look at frogs. So you can refine your search based on title, subject, work type. So if you're looking for paintings, you can look just for paintings, style or period, a specific location, or a specific material. Looking for, you know, like fiber arts or something like that, or African masks. Who knows? Not sure what you might be looking for, but it does give you some options right off the bat to refine your search. I did just a search for frogs by keyword, and you can kind of see it brings up, again, a wide range of results. We've got two pictures of actual frogs, one picture of a car that looks like a frog, but it, you know, is named Snow Frog because it's a car with snow that has had eyeballs that look like frog eyeballs put into it. Like I said, it's kind of just you never know what you're going to get, and you can kind of just see from how you search to begin with, how you need to refine it, or, you know, if you need assistance, they've got search help there too. Okay, so that's kind of a brief overview of images. Like I said, there's a lot of different things that you can do with that. You can look at who contributed it and see what other things they've contributed. JSTOR is a big contributor to images. So if you're not searching by images that we have access to, you're going to get a lot of results from ArtStore. And we do not have access to ArtStore. So just be aware of that. I recommend searching only for content that we have access to, because then you can download those files and actually use them. The images, you can screenshot them, but they're, you know, they're really low quality, that kind of thing, unless we have access to them. Okay, moving on. There's one more thing that I wanted to point out, and this is kind of another one of those beta things that I think they're working on introducing or trying out, and it may not be around forever, but one thing that is kind of cool that they offer is called the text analyzer, and it's the tools drop-down menu at the top of all of the JSTOR pages. And what you can do with the text analyzer is you can either get a permalink, so a link to some kind of text that is permanent, and I can elaborate on that if you need me to, or you can actually upload a document, either a PDF or a doc, or you can copy and paste text. You've got a lot of different options for how to import this information into the text analyzer. And basically what it does is a couple of different things that I'll show you. It does say, you know, we'll keep your document private. This is really just for your information. That's something that JSTOR is then going to take and use for their own purposes. But what it does is you know, if you upload something or link to it or copy and paste your text, I used here one of the recent Kentucky Supreme Court opinions about, I believe it was the emergency declarations from Governor Beshear. I imported one of their opinions, and what it does is it does analysis, and then it also provides you with results from within JSTOR that are similar, or related in some way. And you can fuss around with the different search filters to refine those related articles. But it also pulls out these different topics over here on the left on the bottom that you can use to analyze and prioritize different search filters that changes then your results for the related articles. So in this example, we've got some of the identified terms or subjects that are related are things like elected officials, apparently courtly dance. I don't know why. But powers of attorney and contract law, arbitration law. So you can then use those topics either to illuminate your own understanding of the text or to then change, the articles that JSTOR returns to you as related and maybe relevant to how you understand the document that you uploaded. So maybe you've written a report about frogs and you want to see what other articles are out on JSTOR that are related to your report on frogs. Who knows? There are many different things that you could do with this, but it's kind of fun to play around with, just to see kind of what it pulls out and what it finds to be topical about whatever document it is that you've uploaded. The other thing to note is this actually works with other languages as well. I've never tried that, but apparently you can upload or link to things in other languages and it will also work for that. All right, so that's kind of the end of it. Just do a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions while I'm wrapping up here, feel free to pop them in the chat and we'll answer them as we wrap up. But we first want to thank the Institute of Museum and Library Services for the sponsorship of this webinar. Without their support, this would be not possible, so very important. And like I said at the beginning, this has been recorded and it will be available within 1 week or so. A link to a short survey is, if I can grab it real quick, is going to go into the chat. Please do fill out the survey. It is quite important for our federal funding and also for our own edification. If you think I did a nice job or could be improved, please let us know. As well as the presentation slides and certificate of attendance will be emailed out to everyone. And I will note, if you're watching this recording at a later date, we will have the survey available to you as well. So please, you are also on the hook for filling it out. Like I said, it's very important for our funding, so please do so. Thank you for joining us today. And if you have any further questions, if you think of something later, feel free to reach out and let us know. We're here to help you out. Thanks so much.